It's just amazing. And this is like a spin-off. It's just unheard of. So that was on my mind at that point.
You won't believe the secrets hiding behind the grins of TV's loudest mouths and sassiest maids. The Jeffersons may have moved on up, but what their stars left behind when the cameras cut is something most fans never saw coming.
And I called out and said, hey, this is Sherman Hemsley. Hold it, we were looking for him.
They've been looking for him. They were looking for him high and low, couldn't find him.
But you should have seen him.
Let's start with Sherman Hemsley, the man who turned George Jefferson into a TV legend. George was loud, cocky, and always in somebody's business. But Sherman himself, he was the total opposite. Off screen, he was so private and reserved that even his closest castmates admitted they never truly knew the man behind the character. He built walls around his personal life like a fortress, never letting Hollywood or even his co-stars peek inside. Sherman's path to fame wasn't easy either. Born in Philadelphia, he dropped out of school and enlisted in the Air Force just to get by. Later, he worked long hours at the post office sorting mail. But at night, a different side of him came alive. He was chasing a dream of acting. He found his tribe in the Negro Ensemble Company, a groundbreaking group giving black actors the spotlight they deserved. That passion led him straight to Broadway, where he lit up the stage in the play Pearly. And that's when fate stepped in. TV powerhouse Norman Lear saw his brilliance and knew instantly, this was George Jefferson. But here's the wild part. Sherman didn't want to give up Broadway. So what did Lear do? He held the role open for an entire year just for him. Imagine that. Hollywood doesn't wait for anyone. But Norman Lear was so convinced Sherman was the one that he froze the role until he was ready to move to Los Angeles. When Sherman finally took the plunge, George Jefferson was born. But it wasn't smooth sailing. George was brash, sharp-tongued, and downright mean at times. And Sherman, who was soft-spoken and gentle, struggled to wear that fiery personality like an oversized coat that never quite fit. Off camera, he'd retreat back into himself, almost as if the role drained him. Isabel Sanford, who played his on-screen wife Louise, even gave him a hilarious nickname to poke fun at the difference between the real Sherman and the character everyone thought they knew. That nickname Wheezy stuck like glue, but it also revealed just how close Sherman and Isabel had become, even though he was such a quiet man. One day, Sherman slipped up and called Louise Wheezy by accident, and the cast laughed so hard it ended up becoming one of the most iconic parts of the show. But behind all those laughs, Sherman carried a secret that ran way deeper than any blooper on set. While George Jefferson flaunted fancy suits and a loudmouth attitude, Sherman was the total opposite. Off-screen, he was a spiritual soul who found peace in music, so much so that he even dropped his own R&B album. But the real bombshell about Sherman Hemsley was his personal life. He never married, never had kids, and lived a life so private that people barely knew him beyond the character. Hollywood insiders whispered for years about the truth. Sherman was a gay man. But in an era when it was risky, even dangerous to be open in show business, he kept that part of himself locked away, sharing it only with a tight circle of friends who truly knew him. As the years rolled by, Sherman stepped further from the spotlight, choosing a quiet, simple life instead of the chaos of Hollywood. But even in death, his private world caused headlines. When he passed in 2012, a shocking fight broke out over his will. Sherman left his money and home to a close friend, but suddenly people showed up claiming to be long-lost relatives. The battle exposed just how mysterious his life really was, even after he was gone. For a man who made millions laugh, his ending was wrapped in sadness and scandal. Now let's talk about Isabel Sanford.
They're afraid if they fall, they'll never get back up on their feet again.
Oh, that's sweet of you, Weezy, and smart, too.
The unforgettable Louise Jefferson, or as fans adored her, Wheezy. She was the calm to George's storm, the strong and steady force that kept his wild antics in check. But Isabel's own climb to stardom was packed with twists and struggles you wouldn't expect. Born in New York City, Isabel had her heart set on acting from a young age, but her mother wasn't having it. She told her daughter that acting was no future at all. Did that stop Isabel? Not a chance. She chased her dreams in secret, sneaking onto stages in local clubs and eventually shining under the spotlight at the legendary Apollo Theater. Just like Sherman, she found her way into acting groups, building the skills and connections that would one day make her a household name. Before the fame, Isabel Sanford worked a regular job as a key punch operator, making ends meet while secretly chasing her passion for acting. All that hustle finally paid off when she made her Broadway debut in The Amen Corner. From there, she snagged a small but powerful role in the groundbreaking film Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. That movie shook audiences because it tackled race at a time when Hollywood rarely dared to touch such heavy truths. Then came the role that changed everything. At 58 years old, an age when most actresses were being told their best days were behind them, Isabel landed the role of Louise Wheezy Jefferson. While others might have been thinking about slowing down, Isabel was only just heating up. On screen, she brought fire and warmth all at once, playing the perfect balance to George's wild stubbornness. She wasn't afraid to shut him down, but always did it with love, and audiences adored her for it. And then Isabel made history. She became the first Black actress to ever win an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a comedy series. That moment proved that Black women weren't just sidekicks or background characters. They could be the stars, the leads, the queens of primetime TV. Even Sherman Hemsley, her TV husband, crowned her with the nickname The Queen, and the entire cast agreed she earned every bit of it. One of the most unforgettable moments came from pure improv. In a scene where George was being his usual hard-headed self, Isabel, as Louise, suddenly snapped, "Please!" The crowd erupted into laughter, and that unscripted line became a legendary part of TV history. It captured exactly why the Jeffersons worked so well. The comedy came alive because it felt real. Even after the Jeffersons ended, Isabel kept shining. She popped up in hit shows like Living Single and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Fans loved seeing her reunited with Sherman in TV spots and commercials, both of them slipping back into their iconic roles as if no time had passed. Their bond off-screen was genuine too, proof that their chemistry wasn't just for the cameras. Marla Gibbs, who played Florence, once said the entire Jeffersons cast felt like family, and Isabel stayed close with Sherman right up until his final days. But Isabel's story also had a bittersweet ending. She passed away in 2004 at the age of 86, leaving behind not just laughter, but a legacy that broke barriers wide open. She was living proof that it's never too late to chase your dreams, no matter the obstacles. And speaking of dreams, let's talk about Florence Johnston.
Why don't you work it out with Miss Jefferson? I can always get something else from the agency.
The sassy maid with the sharpest tongue in sitcom history. Played by Marla Gibbs, Florence could put George in his place with one cutting line, and fans lived for it. But Marla's own journey to stardom is just as wild and inspiring. Born in Chicago, she worked a normal 9-to-5 before fame ever called her name. Believe it or not, she was a reservations agent for United Airlines before Hollywood discovered her sass. Can you imagine booking a flight and having Florence herself answer the phone? Can you believe it? The same Florence who was always cutting George Jefferson down with her razor-sharp comebacks was, in real life, booking flights for United Airlines. That's right, Marla Gibbs actually kept her day job for 2 whole years after she started on the Jeffersons. Picture it, one moment she's putting George in his place on set, and the next she's on the phone dealing with angry travelers about flight delays. That shows you just how grounded she was and how hard she grinded to make her dream stick. Before her big break, Marla was hustling in local Black theater groups, sharpening her skills and grabbing whatever small film roles she could. When she finally landed on the Jeffersons, Florence Johnston was never meant to be more than a side character. But Marla's wit, timing, and savage one-liners lit up the screen, and fans couldn't get enough. People loved that Florence didn't just take George's attitude. She clapped back every single time. The audience demanded more, and the writers had no choice but to keep her around full-time. Florence went from an extra to one of the show's most iconic figures, all because Marla brought her fire to the role. But here's the twist, Marla Gibbs wasn't just Florence. Behind the scenes, she was a true boss lady. In the 1980s, she opened her very own jazz club in Los Angeles called Marla's Memory Lane Jazz and Supper Club. And this wasn't some Hollywood vanity project. She ran it for almost 20 years, giving space for artists to perform while also stepping on stage herself as a singer. She even dropped her own albums, proving she wasn't just funny, but she had pipes too. Her star power kept growing. Even though her Jefferson spinoff Checking In didn't last, Marla bounced right back with 227. This time, she wasn't just the star, she was behind the scenes too, producing and even singing the theme song. Talk about multi-talented. And guess what? Marla never stopped. She's still acting today, and after decades of breaking barriers, she finally received her very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's the kind of recognition legends deserve, but the surprises didn't stop with Florence. The Jeffersons also made TV history with something groundbreaking. The first regular interracial couple on primetime television. Helen and Tom Willis, played by Roxy, Roker, and Franklin Cover, shook the entire TV world in the 1970s. This wasn't just entertainment. This was a bold statement during a time when many people still didn't want to see that kind of love on their screens. And behind the scenes, Roxy's own story made her character even more fascinating. Roxy Roker's journey to the Jeffersons was already legendary before she even stepped on set. Born in Miami, she went on to Howard University, the same powerhouse black college that shaped stars like Isabel Sanford and Sherman Hemsley. Just like them, she trained with the famous Negro Ensemble Company, the breeding ground for some of the most talented black actors in history. On stage, she wasn't just good, she was great. Roxy won awards for her theater work and even snagged a Tony Award nomination, proving her talent was undeniable. But here's where her real life mirrored her role in a way no one saw coming. Roxy didn't just play one half of an interracial couple. She was living it. In real life, she was married to Cy Kravitz, a white Russian Jewish TV producer, and together they had a son who grew up to be none other than rock superstar Lenny Kravitz. When Norman Lear was first building the Jeffersons, he worried audiences might not accept an interracial couple on primetime TV. It was a bold gamble for the 1970s. Roxy shut down those doubts with one powerful move. She showed Lear a family photo, her white husband, and their mixed-race son. That single picture hit harder than any speech. It proved this wasn't some TV fantasy. This was real life. And it gave Lear the push he needed to make history on screen. Of course, the show didn't shy away from the tension either. George Jefferson, being George, threw shade at Tom and Helen, even calling them zebras in the early episodes. His prejudice was written as a flaw, but over time, George grew and learned to accept them, sending a bold message to millions of viewers about love, respect, and breaking down walls of hate. Franklin Cover, who played Tom Willis, was no rookie either. He came from theater, just like Roxy, and brought a quiet dignity to Tom's character. Paired with Roxy's grace, they created TV magic, showing that love doesn't have to fit into outdated boxes. Together, Tom and Helen weren't just characters. They were a revolution in prime time. Off-screen, Roxy's legacy went far beyond acting. She became an advocate for children and was even honored by the Los Angeles City Council for her work helping kids in need. Sadly, she passed away in 1995 from breast cancer, leaving behind a legacy of strength and groundbreaking change. Franklin Cover kept working too, appearing in movies like Wall Street before passing in 2006. Together, Roxy and Franklin were more than just a sitcom couple. They were proof that acceptance, unity, and love could move mountains, or as the Jeffersons would say, move on up. Now let's shift to another shocker. The character who tied the Jeffersons back to All in the Family, Lionel Jefferson. And trust me, this role came with a twist that many fans have completely forgotten. Here's a twist most fans forget. 2 different actors played Lionel Jefferson. That's right, the role wasn't locked to just one face. And the story behind it is full of surprises and a little behind-the-scenes drama.
Morning, Mom. Morning, Pop.
Good morning, Lionel.
Morning, my son.
The first Lionel was Mike Evans, and his road to Hollywood was as unexpected as it gets. He was a drama major but didn't have much acting under his belt. Then one day, fate stepped in. A casting agent for Norman Lear spotted him while he was hitchhiking. That lucky break landed him his very first TV role as Lionel in All in the Family. At first, Norman actually wanted Cleveland Little for the role, but Mike walked away with the part, and suddenly, he was Archie Bunker's quick-witted black neighbor and Jenny Willis's boyfriend, then husband. But Mike wasn't content with just acting. He had bigger ambitions. He wanted to write. After season 1 of The Jeffersons, he shocked fans by walking away from the role. The official story was that he left to focus on his writing, but insiders whisper about a messier truth. Jimmy Walker, the star of Good Times, which Mike co-created, once revealed the tea. He claimed Mike wasn't happy with his lack of lines on the Jeffersons. At a Christmas party, he even confronted Norman Lear face-to-face, complaining about his small role and threatening to quit if things didn't change. Not long after, Lionel disappeared from the show, though Mike did make a short return later on. That behind-the-scenes clash was a big reason the original Lionel vanished. But Mike Evans didn't just vanish into thin air. He made history behind the camera. He co-created Good Times, another massive Norman Lear spinoff, this time spotlighting the daily lives of a black family in America. That show became a cultural landmark in its own right. Later, Mike stepped out of the spotlight entirely, trading scripts and sets for real estate. He built a second career as a commercial real estate investor before passing away in 2006 from throat cancer. When Mike left the role, the torch was passed to a new Lionel, Damon Evans, no relation. And that switch was almost unheard of at the time. Imagine a major character being replaced with barely an explanation. But Damon came in swinging. Unlike Mike, Damon was trained in classical music, not television. At just 17, he won a scholarship to a special arts school thanks to his incredible singing voice. He even founded his own opera company in Baltimore before Hollywood called his name. When Damon stepped into Lionel's shoes, he faced a steep climb. He didn't even watch the Jeffersons beforehand, and no one told him how to play the part. So he just figured it out himself and gave the character his own spin. Beyond the Jeffersons, Damon scored a major role in the powerful miniseries Roots, The Next Generations. But while TV brought him fame, his heart always belonged to classical singing. Eventually, he walked away from Hollywood to chase his opera dreams full-time. And it worked. Damon landed major roles, including the iconic opera Porgy and Bess, proving his voice was just as powerful as his acting. Damon Evans didn't just sing, he conquered stages across the world, from performing with the London Symphony Orchestra to sharing the spotlight with the Berlin Philharmonic. His voice carried him into legendary halls. He even graced the stage at New York's iconic Carnegie Hall, the dream stage for any performer. But what should have been a career of triumph took a shocking turn one night. During one of his opera performances, Damon was attacked on stage. Another singer, furious over the attention Damon was getting, actually came at him mid-performance and struck him. Can you imagine? An opera turning into chaos in front of a stunned audience. Damon later admitted he believed it was pure jealousy that sparked the assault. What could have ended his career instead fueled him. He pushed past the fear, came back stronger, and used that energy to launch his career to even greater heights overseas. But Damon carried another truth that made his journey even more powerful. He is an openly gay black man, a rarity in the entertainment world of his era. Even more astonishing, he was present during the Stonewall riots in New York, a turning point for LGBTQ+ rights. To live openly at that time, especially in show business, took fierce courage. Damon didn't just break barriers on stage, he shattered them in life too. Now, let's turn to the woman who played Lionel's wife, the elegant Jenny Willis Jefferson, portrayed by Belinda Tolbert.
See, I'm looking for a guy named Lionel Jefferson. You know, you look like him. Well, I take that back. You got a much bigger head.
Jenny wasn't just a character. She was the heart of the groundbreaking interracial storyline that shook television history. Belinda started her career in the early 1970s, showing up in hit shows like That's My Mama and Sanford and Son. But here's a wild little detail most fans never caught. She also had a small role in Martin Scorsese's gritty film Mean Streets. Imagine, before she was America's favorite sitcom wife, she was part of one of Scorsese's earliest classics. On The Jeffersons, Belinda stuck around for the entire run of the show. Fans watched her grow from Lionel's sweet girlfriend into his devoted wife and eventually a mother. She was living proof that interracial love could thrive on primetime TV, and her presence made the Jeffersons family story that much richer. After the sitcom ended, Belinda kept her career moving with roles in films like Harlem Nights and Goodfellas, plus guest spots on major TV shows including ER and 6 Feet Under. But in a move that showed her true character, Belinda later stepped away from Hollywood almost completely. Why? To dedicate herself to caring for her aging parents. It was a quiet, selfless choice, one many fans never knew about, that revealed the depth of her loyalty and love. And just when you thought you knew all the Jeffersons' neighbors, here comes the quirky one, the strange but lovable Harry Bentley. The quirky neighbor, Harry Bentley, wasn't just a scene stealer. His real-life story was just as surprising. He was played by Paul Benedict, and while audiences swore he was British because of that accent and gentlemanly manner,
Merry Christmas!
Bentley, Christmas ain't till next week.
Yes, I know that, but I wanted to avoid the Christmas rush.
here's the truth. Paul was American, born in New Mexico. His flawless performance as a proper Englishman was proof of just how skilled he really was. Paul had already built a powerhouse career in theater before sitcom fame came calling. He shared the stage with Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, and Al Pacino before they were stars. From Broadway to regional theaters, Paul earned his stripes long before Bentley started knocking on the Jeffersons' door. But behind the laughs, Paul lived with a hidden challenge, a rare medical condition called acromegaly. This disorder causes the body to produce too much growth hormone, changing facial features and enlarging hands and feet. The most shocking part, Paul didn't even know at first it was an audience member, who happened to be a doctor, who spotted the signs while watching him perform on stage. That stranger reached out and Paul finally got his diagnosis. It was a private battle, one most people never knew, but it shaped his distinctive appearance. Still, he never let it stop him. On set, Paul was described as humble, kind, and totally ego-free. Even beyond the Jeffersons, Paul's comedic genius kept shining. He landed roles in cult classics like This Is Spinal Tap and A Mighty Wind, plus hilarious guest spots on shows like Seinfeld. Sadly, Paul passed away in 2008 from a brain hemorrhage, leaving behind a legacy as a master of comedy who never let his condition define him. But the surprises didn't stop with Bentley, because then came Mother Jefferson. His sharp-tongued, fiery mom was played by Zara Cully, and her story is jaw-dropping.
I've been worried about Lionel ever since Louise called. Has he come home yet?
No, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
Here's the shocker. Zara was already 82 years old when she started playing Mother Jefferson. Imagine landing the most iconic role of your career in your 80s. Before sitcom stardom, Zara had been performing for half a century. She wasn't just an actress, she was a force in drama education, earning the title Dean of Drama in Florida for her work teaching elocution. But her early years were far from easy. Growing up in the Jim Crow South, Zara endured racism so severe that she eventually packed up and moved to Hollywood, determined to find real opportunities. That resilience gave her performances as Mother Jefferson an undeniable weight. Her sharp humor and wisdom came straight from lived experience. Zara actually originated the role of Mother Jefferson on All in the Family before the spinoff pushed her into the spotlight. But sadly, during the Jeffersons run, her health began to decline. She battled pneumonia and later lung cancer, a quiet struggle that mirrored the strength she so often portrayed on screen. Zara passed away in 1978 at the age of 86. Her loss was felt so deeply that the Jeffersons did something rare for sitcoms. They wrote her death into the storyline. It gave both the cast and the audience a chance to grieve together, honoring Mother Jefferson not just as a character, but as a woman who had become part of America's living rooms. That raw, emotional moment brought tears to viewers who had come to love her fiery wisdom and sharp humor. The cast of the Jeffersons gave us years of laughter, but as we've uncovered, their real lives were filled with stories even more dramatic than the scripts they performed. From shocking health battles and hidden identities to fearless, trailblazing backstage drama and selfless acts of love, these actors carried more than just punchlines. They carried strength, pain, and resilience that fans rarely got to see. They truly moved on up, not just in their careers, but in their lives, leaving behind a legacy that broke barriers, entertained millions, and revealed the power of pushing forward no matter the odds. And now it's your turn. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let us know which Jefferson star's story surprised you the most, and we'll see you in the next one.